Most people have dealt with some form of low self-esteem, myself included, but low self-esteem and living your best life do not go hand in hand, so let's work on it. What's up, my Valentines? Welcome to or back to my channel. Today we're talking about how to have higher self-esteem, because our self-esteem, our self-image literally dictates our reality. It controls our whole quality of life. The good news is that low self-esteem doesn't tend to come from us. It's normally come from something or someone outside of us at some stage. It's not something we're born with, which means we can change it. The good news is that we can raise our self-esteem using just a few methods, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So stay tuned. Tip number one is to identify the root cause of your low self-esteem. Because as I touched on earlier, it normally comes from something or someone outside of us. And to be honest, it normally comes from something that happened in our childhood. So once you can identify what the events were in your life, what the things were that people said to you in your life that lowered your self-esteem like this, then you can begin to understand that none of it actually came from you, and it's just a story that you've been playing in your mind for so long that you've started to believe it. It can be something as simple as taking pen to paper and just writing out anything you can think of that's happened in your life, especially in childhood, anything that people have said to you, any experiences that you went through that really shook your self-esteem, and start to identify where this crept in during your life. So tip number two is to start to remove that story. So now that you've identified your story and where it's come from, now the task is to start peeling away the layers of that story. And where we start with that is simply through meditation. I'm not going to go into it too much. I've got a whole video about meditation, which I'll link in the cards above. But simply put, meditation is a way to clean your slate, to empty your mind and start fresh. It basically allows you to work with a blank canvas, which is what we want for this exercise. During meditation, you get a lot more in tune with yourself. You start to notice those thoughts that I was talking about, those little negative thoughts, that story that's been running in the background will come to the forefront, and you will notice it even more, but from a very objective standpoint, which will enable you to see it for what it really is. And that is when we can start to remove it. Then step number three is to disrupt your negative thought patterns. So now that you've been meditating and you've started to clean your slate and we're working with a blank canvas, now we can disrupt the usual thought pattern, because that pattern will try to come right back. And how we do this is we give new thoughts for the brain to think. And my favorite and most simple and most powerful way to do this is simply by using positive affirmations. They are all over YouTube. You can make your own affirmations and just say them to yourself out loud. But personally, I think the most powerful way to use them is to pop in your headphones and listen to them on a loop whilst you're doing chores around the house, or whilst you're just sitting there in silence, whatever. Because that way it actually leaks into your subconscious mind, because the key to wiring a new belief in your mind is using repetition, and that's what these affirmations do. Now, step number three, which should be a lot easier for you now that you've started to reprogram your mind, is to start removing those bad habits that you probably picked up whilst you had low self-esteem. So for example, that is the dressing poorly, starting to let your appearance slip, starting to lay in longer than usual, starting to isolate yourself from the world, not working out, not eating right. You know what I'm talking about. Those unhealthy habits, that loop that you get into when you're suffering with low self-esteem. It's time to start peeling away those bad habits now, because what they do is they give you a certain result in your looks, in the way you feel, in the way you think, and then you see that in the mirror, and that only reinforces those old negative thought patterns that gave you the low self-esteem in the first place. So it's like a vicious cycle that never ends, So once you've emptied your mind, started to reprogram your mind, now you want to physically start removing those bad habits and replacing them with good ones. So start to take pride in your personal appearance. Definitely start to improve your personal hygiene. Start to eat well, start to work out, start socializing, and start implementing good habits into your daily life. Which leads me to tip number 4, which is to now start pushing the boundaries. So whilst experiencing low self-esteem, you've likely shut off from the world, and like I said, you've started to get into this loop of bad habits. But now that you're starting to remove those and replace them with good ones, now is also time to start breaking that comfort zone, because true self-esteem is built from world experience, from getting out there and proving to yourself that you are worthy, that you are confident, that people do like you. You know, it's positive reinforcement. I have a whole other video about how to break out of your comfort zones, which I will link up in the cards for you, so be sure to check that out. But you know the kind of things that help you to feel accomplished, whatever it is that you need to do to get yourself out there again and get your zest and passion for life back. All of these things take time. You know, you can't just change your self-esteem overnight. Unfortunately, it all takes consistency and repetition. And as we know by now, it takes at least 28 days to remove a habit and replace it with another one, if not longer. Really, I think it actually takes about 3 months to do so. So don't expect results overnight. Don't beat yourself up. Just start to, like I said, remove old habits, replace them with new ones. Give yourself time, stick with it. Really do implement these steps. Get out into the world, break those comfort zones slowly, start living life again. You will be back to high self-esteem in no time. I hope this video helped you. If you found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, if you want good vibes, don't forget to subscribe. Until the next one, I wish you health, wealth, and high vibrations.